was a typical Tuesday night a few months ago. I was home alone, something I'd been doing for years since my parents travel a lot for work. Our house isn't huge, just a cozy older place on the outskirts of town. It's usually pretty quiet, nestled among some older, established trees. And it feels pretty safe, the kind of place where you don't really think twice about leaving doors unlocked, which, in hindsight, was a huge mistake. I'm a big true crime fan, always watching documentaries or listening to podcasts. That night, I was deep into a series about unsolved disappearances, all the lights off except for my laptop screen just to set the mood. I had a big blanket draped over me, a cup of tea getting cold on my nightstand, totally engrossed in the story. It was probably around 1 a.m., way past my usual bedtime, but I couldn't tear myself away. Then, I heard it. A faint tap, tap, tap at my window. I froze. My window faces the backyard, which is usually pitch black at night, with a dense line of trees beyond our fence. My first thought was that it was just a branch, maybe the wind. But there was no wind. The air was perfectly still and the tapping was rhythmic, deliberate. It sounded like fingernails lightly scratching on the glass. My heart started to pound. I pulled the blanket tighter, straining to hear over the narrator's voice in my headphones. The tapping continued, slow and steady, like someone was trying to get my attention without making too much noise. It wasn't aggressive, but it was incredibly unsettling. I pulled off my headphones, and the silence of the house magnified the sound. Tap, tap, tap. I slowly, very slowly, reached for my phone, my hand trembling a little. Every instinct screamed at me not to look, not to move, not to acknowledge whatever was out there. The true crime stories I'd been binging suddenly felt a lot less entertaining and a lot more real. The tapping stopped. Just as I thought it was over, there was a faint, almost imperceptible scrape against the glass, like something being dragged very slowly, followed by a soft, long sigh right outside my window. It was human. I knew it. I stayed frozen under my blanket, eyes wide, staring at the darkened window. I could practically feel whatever was outside, just on the other side of the glass. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. My phone felt like a brick in my hand, but I couldn't bring myself to call anyone, fearing the sound would give away that I was awake. After what felt like an eternity, but was probably only a minute or two, I heard it again. This time, it wasn't tapping. It was a gentle scratching sound, like something was being dragged along the side of the house, getting closer to my bedroom door. My room is at the back of the house, and the only way to get to my door from outside without going through the main entrance is to walk along the side of the house. Every scrape, every subtle rustle sent a fresh wave of panic through me. It sounded like it was right outside the wall next to my head. Then, the scratching stopped. I held my breath, listening, my ears straining for any sound. And that's when I heard it. A creak. Not a floorboard creak, but the distinct sound of our old rusty back gate opening. My stomach dropped. The back gate leads directly into our yard, and more importantly, directly to the sliding glass door of our den. I slowly, meticulously slid out from under my blanket, trying to make zero noise. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would give me away. I crept towards my bedroom door, careful to avoid the squeaky floorboards. I knew I needed to get to the living room where the main phone was. But that meant crossing past the den. As I got to my door, I heard another sound, a faint, muffled thud from downstairs. Then a softer clink. It sounded like someone was trying to open the den's sliding door, but carefully. They didn't want to make noise. I pressed my ear against my bedroom door, straining to hear. The house was dead quiet again, except for the frantic beat of my own heart. I stayed there for what felt like forever, rooted to the spot, just listening. The silence was almost worse than the sounds, because my imagination filled it with the most terrifying possibilities. I could feel sweat prickling on my forehead, despite the cool night air. I knew I couldn't stay in my room. I had to get out. The quiet, was unnerving, but I knew I couldn't stay put. Adrenaline coursed through me, pushing me to act. I carefully opened my bedroom door just a crack and peeked out into the dimly lit hallway. Our old house groaned as it always did, but thankfully nothing else stirred. I tiptoed down the hall, every muscle tensed, making my way towards the living room. The landline, our only phone upstairs, was on a small table near the main window. As I passed the den, I couldn't help but glance in. The sliding glass door was ajar, just a sliver, enough to confirm my worst fears. A cold gust of night air snaked into the house. My heart leaped into my throat. I reached the living room, fumbled for the phone, and with shaking fingers, dialed my best friend, Maya. It was almost 2 a.m., but I knew she'd answer. She always did. Her voice, groggy with sleep, was like a lifeline. "Hello? Maya, you have to call the police," I whispered, my voice barely a tremor. "Someone's in the house. I think they came in through the den." The sleep vanished from her voice instantly. "What? Are you serious? Where are your parents?" "They're out of town," I choked out, a sob catching in my throat. "I heard them. They're here." She immediately started giving me instructions, her voice firm and calm despite the panic I could hear in her own breathing. "Go hide. Get into your parents' room, lock the door, and stay under the bed. I'm calling 911 right now. Stay on the line with me if you can." Just as she said that, a distinct creak came from the stairs leading up from the first floor. It was slow, deliberate. My blood ran cold. They were coming up. "Maya, they're upstairs," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "Stay quiet. Don't move. The police are on their way. They'll be there soon," she urged, her voice laced with urgency. I scrambled into my parents' room, fumbling with the lock. It clicked shut with a small, satisfying sound. I dove under their large bed, pulling the thick comforter down to conceal myself. Through the thin crack under the door, I could see the light from the hallway, and then a shadow fell over it. The footsteps were heavy, echoing in the silent house. They stopped right outside my parents' door. I heard a soft sniff, then a slow, deliberate turn of the doorknob. It rattled gently, then again, as if the person on the other side was testing it. The lock held. There was a faint, almost imperceptible sigh from the hallway, followed by a light scratching sound against the wood of the door, right where the handle was. It wasn't aggressive, more like a persistent, testing gesture. Then the footsteps moved away, slowly descending the stairs again. I heard another distant thud, and then the familiar creak of the back gate closing. Moments later, the distinct sound of a car, our neighbor's old Ford, started up on the street and drove away. I stayed under the bed, clutching my phone, until I heard the sirens wailing in the distance, growing louder with each second. When the police finally arrived, they found the back door wide open, but no one was there. They searched the house, checked the perimeter. There were no footprints, no signs of forced entry, nothing. It was as if no one had ever been there, except for the cold air still drifting in from the open door and the lingering scent of damp earth. The police filed a report, but without any solid evidence, there wasn't much they could do. They suggested it might have been an animal or the wind, but I knew what I'd heard and seen. I told them about the car driving away, but they just nodded, making a note. My parents rushed home the next morning, obviously shaken. We upgraded our security system, added new locks, and I haven't been home alone at night since, without at least one dog by my side. I still don't know who it was or what they wanted, but every time I hear a strange sound at night or the wind rustles the trees too loudly, I can still hear that soft, persistent tap, tap, tap at my window. And I wonder if they'll ever come back.